All right, today we're going to dive into a really fascinating ancient story. And believe me, it holds a super powerful lesson for anyone, and I mean anyone, trying to make sense of the wild world of the stock market.
And it all kicks off with this one simple question. But don't let its simplicity fool you. If you really let this sink in, it can totally change how you react to everything. The market's ups, the downs, the big wins, the painful losses. It's a question that really gets at the heart of our instincts as investors.
So, to really get the power behind that question, we've got to take a little trip back in time. We're headed to this small, ancient village to meet someone who was, well, let's just say he was very wise and definitely a little unusual.
Okay, so in this village, there was a man everyone called the Neutral Sage. And this guy was famous, like all over the place, for his incredible ability to just stay completely calm and neutral no matter what. Seriously, whatever life threw his way, he was never super happy about it, but he was also never super sad. Just neutral.
Now, you got to understand, back in those days, owning a horse was a huge deal. It was like having a luxury car today, a real sign of wealth. And our sage, he owned this one beautiful horse. But then, one day, disaster strikes, or so it seemed. The horse just breaks free and bolts into the forest. So of course the villagers hear about this, and they all rush over to his house to say how sorry they are. Oh, what a terrible, terrible loss, they're all saying. But the sage, he just looks at them calmly and asks that one simple question. How can you say it's bad so soon?
I mean, can you imagine? The villagers were just completely confused by this. But then, get this. Just a few days later, something absolutely amazing happens. The sage's horse just comes trotting back into the village. And it's not alone. Nope, it brought 5 wild horses back with it.
So now the villagers are back, but this time they're here at a party. They're celebrating his incredible luck. I mean, he went from 1 horse to 6. "You're so rich now, this is amazing," they're all yelling. And what do you think the sage said? Yep, you already know. How can you say it's good so soon? All right, so the story continues. The sage's only son decides he's going to take on the job of taming these new wild horses. And this was, seriously dangerous work. And sure enough, one day he gets thrown from one of them and has a really bad fall. Breaks his leg. Badly. And here we go again. The cycle just keeps on turning. The villagers show up, offering all their sympathy for this awful turn of events. Oh, this is just a disaster, they say. And for the 3rd time, the sage just calmly pushes back on their rush to judgment. So, not long after his son's accident, the story takes yet another dramatic twist. A war is declared, and the king's army marches right into the village and rounds up every single able-bodied young man to go fight. But they couldn't take the sage's son. And why not? Because of his broken leg. The war turned out to be absolutely brutal, and tragically, every single one of the other young men from that village died in the fighting. The sage's son, because of what everyone called a terrible accident, was the only one left. So if you look at this timeline, you really start to see the heart of the sage's wisdom, right? What looked like a terrible loss led to an amazing gain. That gain then led to a painful injury. And that very injury, well, it ended up saving his life. The point is, no single event is ever just good or bad all by itself.
Okay, so what in the world does this ancient story have to do with you trading stocks on your computer in the 21st century? Well, as it turns out, it has everything to do with it.
Really, the wisdom of the neutral sage might be the single most important lesson any of us can learn as investors. Because the market, just like life in that story, is just one long chain of events. Today's huge win might just make you overconfident and set you up for a big loss tomorrow. And hey, a painful loss today might teach you a lesson that leads to your greatest successes down the road.
And this is the key takeaway right here. We've got to stop looking at every single trade as the final score. A profitable trade doesn't mean you're a genius, and a losing trade definitely doesn't mean you're a failure. They're just data points. They're just single events in a much, much longer journey.
So let's make this practical. Here's how you actually use this. Let's say you make a huge profit on a trade. Instead of popping the champagne, you got to pause and ask yourself, how can I say this is good so soon, right? Maybe that win just makes you cocky, and you take a dumb, risky bet next time. On the flip side, you take a painful loss. Instead of wanting to throw your computer out the window, you ask, how can I say this is bad so soon? Maybe, just maybe, you learned a critical lesson about risk that's going to save you from a catastrophic loss later on.
So if a single win isn't the real goal and a single loss isn't the end of the world,
Then what are we actually playing for? What does winning, really winning, in the market even look like? Well, the real victory, the true win, isn't the cash from one trade. No way. It's having a solid process, a system that you can rely on and repeat. It's about sticking to your plan even when things get crazy, whether you're on a hot streak or a losing streak. It's about managing your risk like a pro, and above all, it's about keeping that neutral, long-term mindset of the sage, trade after trade, year after year.
And you can actually break this whole mindset down into a pretty simple 3-step approach. Okay, step 1, see a profit for what it is, just one piece of data. It might confirm your strategy is working, or maybe it was just luck. Step 2, see a loss the same way. It's not a failure, it's just more data. It's valuable feedback telling you what you might need to tweak. And finally, step 3, a big one. You have to shift your focus away from those day-to-day results and put it squarely on the quality of your long-term process.
And that really brings us to the final question, the one I want to leave you with. The very next time you close out a trade, doesn't matter if it's a win or a loss, what's that voice in your head going to say? Are you going to be like the villagers, reacting emotionally to every little thing? Or are you going to be the neutral sage with that patient, long-term wisdom? At the end of the day, that choice is entirely up to you.